When I give out the money, it's us. When I have to push people, it's me. All alone. Don't think I cannot see through you.
Sometimes the truth sits in plain sight, but seeing it is never the same as understanding it. You can recognize the threat, feel the danger pressing down, but that doesn't mean you're ready or even able to face it. Sometimes you can see the knife long before it's buried in your back, and still, there's nothing you can do to stop the bleeding. Mikhail Faustin is that kind of story. He's not like the others, and yet he is. He's just another person trying to hold on to power in Liberty City, where it seems the ones who were once powerful get devoured if they're slow to adapt. But where others lie and scheme behind masks, Faustin does it all out in the open. The rage, the paranoia, the desperation, it's all laid bare. He doesn't pretend. He doesn't know how to. And maybe that's what makes him so dangerous. Faustin is the rare man who tells you exactly who he is. There's no performance, it's just raw, unfiltered madness. And somehow that honesty makes him even more unpredictable. His cocaine addiction only sharpens the blade. It fuels his paranoia, strips away what little restraint he might have had, and turns every pressing thought into a potential death sentence for someone else, who may not even be at fault for anything. The only crime they committed is just being within striking distance, and the rod that absorbs that lightning. That high he gets from snorting it doesn't give him clarity, it gives him permission. Permission to speak without thinking, act without consequence, and destroy whatever or whoever feels like a threat, even if it's someone who swore loyalty just yesterday. He doesn't plot, he purely reacts. The first time Niko meets Mikhail Faustin, he walks into madness already in motion. Faustin shouting at two bound men, furious not because they betrayed him, but because their screams are interrupting his wife's television show.
Shut the fuck up! My fucking wife is watching television! Good Lord. What are you doing?
That's who he is. In his world, violence isn't tactical, it's purely personal. It's impulsive. And it's clear that that's how he operates. The moment he turns to Niko and asks if he thinks it's okay to kill his own men, to which Niko, who's still new to this entire side of Liberty City, shrugs and says yes, if they're assholes. And Faustin agrees with that.
So, Niko Bellic, you think it's okay to kill my employees?
If he is an asshole, yes.
Do it! I agree. Asshole, look at me like I'm a piece of shit.
That first encounter, followed by Faustin's erratic behavior and heavy drug use, tells us everything we need to know. The shouting, the impulsive murder, the cocaine-fueled paranoia. Faustin is a fire barely contained. And standing beside him, Dimitri looks like the exact opposite. Calm, quiet, careful with his words. He carries himself with a kind of restraint that feels almost timid, submissive even. Next to Faustin's chaos, Dimitri seems like the lesser evil, like someone who might lack a backbone but at least has a head on his shoulders. It paints a convincing picture, one that deceives not just us but Niko too. Because when the room is filled with noise and rage, the quiet one always seems more reasonable, more trustworthy, more human. But that is the trap. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who never raise their voice, the ones who wait, the ones who watch, the ones who let someone else take all the blame until the time comes for them to take everything underneath them. Dimitri will have his time in the next story, in a future video, but today we look deeper. Not at Faustin as a victim of betrayal, but as a victim of himself. There was a time when he was feared, respected, and by Dimitri's own words, even fair. But that version of Faustin is long gone. What's left is a man clinging to an outdated rulebook. His empire is crumbling not because of outside threats, but because of his own hand. He sees threats everywhere that he created himself, which leads to rash decisions, which leads to more outbursts, which leads to more blood-soaked impulses. That is just another crack in the foundation he built. And through it all, he's doing what little he can to still try to protect the one thing he believes he hasn't ruined, his daughter. It's a small footnote, but even then, that's still a lie he tells himself, because the truth is, he already failed her. The same way he failed his business, the same way he failed Dimitri. Faustin didn't die by Dimitri's betrayal, he was undone by his own inability to acknowledge his screw-ups and actively change. He misguided himself. He wrongly believed that fear could replace trust, that control could replace love, and that loyalty could survive without an ounce of respect. And when it all finally came crashing down, it wasn't because someone took everything from him, it was because he drove it all away, piece by piece, bullet by bullet, line after line. If you want to watch future videos early, ad-free, get some extra behind-the-scenes content, or just support this kind of analysis and storytelling known here on the channel, consider joining the Patreon. Link is down in the description as well as the pinned comment, and a huge thank you to Konkin for being one of the earliest supporters. It means more than you know. Now back to the video.
You would be dead if it wasn't for me. That is what Dimitri wanted when you killed Vlad. Dimitri, my brother, we are brothers for life. And now he betrays me.
Unlike many of these stories, I believe Faustin's story is best told in reverse. From the moment Niko arrives at the Perestroika, unannounced and ready to kill Faustin on Dimitri's behalf, or really for himself, to clear his own hit. And as soon as Faustin sees Niko, he can read the room instantly. He knows why Niko's there. Or as he puts it, it's because he and Dimitri are taking over. He doesn't need to be told, and really in this entire brief exchange before Faustin runs off or any gunfire erupts, there's so much revealed about Faustin, about his fractured bond with Dimitri, about the paranoia eating at him, and about the convictions he clings to as everything around him crumbles. Now, it's important to acknowledge this pretty quickly. This scene as a whole isn't well received. Let me explain. Rockstar does a phenomenal job at storytelling. They've done a great job at painting a perfect picture between Dimitri, who seems to be much more level-headed and logical, versus Faustin, who seems to be much more reactive and emotionally driven. And the reason why Niko is being sent here is to avoid an all-out war and make sure his name is cleared. Because just prior to this, he met up privately with Dimitri that revealed to him, because of Faustin's erratic and irrational behavior, he sent Niko to go and kill the son of Kenny Petrovic, thinking he was the rat and he was the reason why Faustin's organization is being investigated by the police. Dimitri, on the other hand, made it clear it wasn't Kenny's son that was a rat, it was Faustin's own recklessness, an inability to tone down his violence and keep his temper in check that was leading to them being investigated, only adding more to the idea that Faustin really was the bigger problem here. Even if Kenny's son being a rat wasn't the truth, greenlighting a hit on Kenny Petrovic's son would have been a catastrophic miscalculation. That kind of move doesn't just send a message, it begins a massive war, because Petrovic wasn't some small-time rival. He was the head of the only other major Russian syndicate operating here within Liberty City, and by all accounts they did seem to be at peace, so attacking them in such a high-profile and aggressive way, while their organization seemed to be much weaker than Petrovic's to begin with, just felt like suicide. To Niko, it was just another job. He didn't care one way or the other, just as long as he got paid. But after meeting with Dimitri privately, he learned that that job came with consequences to him, regardless of how deep he was tied to Faustin. Thankfully, Dimitri had managed to avoid an all-out war with the Petrovic family, but only with one condition. Faustin had to die, and Dimitri had to be the one to make it happen, quietly behind the scenes. Allegedly, Dimitri cut a deal that would clear Niko of any wrongdoing only if he was the one to pull the trigger. In other words, Niko became the cleanup tool, expendable if things went wrong, protected only if things went exactly according to plan. And when you look back at the broader context, Faustin had already made things much worse. On top of killing Lenny Petrovic, he would send Niko to deliver a truck bomb to a Petrovic-run chop shop without even telling Niko what he was carrying. That reckless escalation only reinforced the image of Faustin as a liability, a man causing chaos not for power, not even for profit, but simply for the sake of it. It all adds to his killing feeling completely justified, at least from the outside. Even Niko says this is what he brought onto himself. And honestly, it's hard to argue with that logic of saying Mikhail Faustin is a maniacal killer with zero regard for human life, and he's a massive danger for everyone around him because he refuses to listen. And he's being killed, not for any kind of power or hostile takeover, but purely out of everyone saving their own skin at first. But then Faustin starts talking. And after a playthrough or two, it no longer feels like just the usual stuff of someone trying to shift the blame, dodge the worst case scenario, or maybe just rambling out of paranoia, which by this time he defines himself by. But it's hard to ignore that there really is some truth to what he says. First, Faustin accuses Niko and Dimitri of staging a takeover. Now for Niko, we know that's not true. He's just trying to survive and clear his name. But when it comes to Dimitri, that part might actually hold some weight. On its own, the accusation could have been brushed off as just another paranoid flare-up. But if we take into account how Faustin had already called Dimitri out, exposing his double standards, and drops a completely unexpected bombshell. According to him, it was Dimitri who originally wanted Niko dead for killing Vlad. And in his strange twist, it was Faustin, the unstable, violent man Niko's now hunting, who actually spared him. That line alone reframes the whole situation. But then Faustin takes it even further. He starts listing what he's done for Dimitri, how he saved him in prison, protected him from being raped, molded him into the man he is today, and now Niko's being added to that list. It's a generalization, sure, but not completely wrong either. Faustin did keep Niko alive when Dimitri wanted him dead, and he kept Dimitri alive when he was too weak to survive on his own.
No one, not Dimitri, not anyone tells me to come. You think Dimitri would have survived prison without me? He'd just be some prison queen had I not been there. Meat for some chin monkey. I am not dead yet.
In hindsight, we know Dimitri is a snake. We know he had ties to Ray Bulgarin, the same Bulgarin who wanted Niko dead. So in a way, it does give some genuine credence to Faustin's claims about Dimitri possibly wanting a takeover, and using this as the perfect time to do so. Faustin perhaps really wasn't making anything up here. There was some truth behind the paranoia, at least in terms of wanting Niko dead. Does that excuse his behavior? No. It doesn't spare him from blame. He did push things too far. He did double down when he should have calmed down. Every time logic or reason was put in front of him, he leaned harder into the chaos as a sort of fuck you to everyone that told him to calm down. But still, it makes him feel more grounded, less like a cartoon villain and more like someone who's just losing control of himself. And that brings up a harder question. If you really knew what Dimitri was capable of, why didn't he protect himself? Why didn't he plan for this? Why did he continue to push everything the way that he did? And honestly, I think they're all tied to the same answer. I think Faustin just didn't care anymore. I think he was suicidal.
He did not used to be like this. When we were young, at home, he was beautiful. He was happy. He made me happy. But then something changed. Years ago. I never quite knew what it was.
From the very beginning, the two people who knew Faustin best, his wife and Dimitri, both speak about him like he's already dead. When they talk about who he used to be, it's like they're remembering a completely different person. Someone who was once loving, kind-hearted, and fair. Not the angry, abusive addict who lashes out at the slightest hint of disrespect or disloyalty. And that's the part that stings because we don't really know what happened to him. There's no clear trigger, no moment where it all fell apart. Even Dimitri and his wife can't point to a specific event that changed him, just everything wearing him down over time seems to be the natural excuse. His wife in particular was so lost trying to make sense of what the hell happened that she began wondering if she was the one who changed him, that maybe it was something that she did. That's how far gone he was. The people closest to him were left questioning their own reality, just trying to understand what the hell broke him. Maybe it was betrayal. Maybe someone close to him got killed because they didn't listen to him, causing him to just not care so much anymore. Losing the point of going forward and making cautious, beneficial decisions. Maybe the pressure just cracked him over time. Whatever it was, it clearly left a mark, and it might explain why he says this line the way that he does.
I am a man of convictions. I have only done what I believe. None of you will survive in this country without me. This American greed takes everyone. Like a disease. Only I will say.
He says that line right before Niko finally kills him as he's running away from him. And it might be a little difficult to hear on account of the gunfire and all the noise in the background, but what he says is, I am a man of convictions. I've only done what I believe. None of you will survive this country without me. This American greed takes everyone. It's like a disease. Only I am still sane. Does it fit what he's going through at that exact moment? Yes, it does. But like a lot of what Faustin says near the end, it's easy to brush off as it feeling just over dramatic, as the type of thing someone that's unhinged would just throw out, even if there's a little bit of truth behind it. But maybe the greed did start corrupting parts of his crew. Maybe that's what pushed him into limbo, where he became stuck between wanting control and not trusting anyone to help him maintain it. So he froze, numbed himself to cocaine, stopped growing the business, and locked everything down to only start taking even the smallest offenses deeply personal. And the thing is, we know he had the opportunity to expand. Dimitri clearly had the vision for it. He saw potential, and to his credit, he seemed to be advising Faustin smartly right up to the very end. And when Faustin dies, it does look as if almost overnight, the same organization under Faustin immediately hit new heights under Dimitri's leadership. The machinery was there, the structure, and the connections was there, the experience, the know-how. Everything you'd want in a powerful operation was all already there, just sitting there, waiting for someone to blow the dust off the stagnant old infrastructure and push it further than it had ever gone before. All it needed was someone with that fire, someone who wanted it. And Faustin, he didn't seem to have that drive anymore. Yes, he was angry, yes, he was violent, yes, he was oppositional, but being belligerent doesn't always mean you've lost yourself or your will. Sometimes it signals the exact opposite, that you're still fighting, just not in a way people fully understand. Maybe Faustin didn't want to be seen as weak. Perhaps he couldn't admit, not to himself and especially not to his wife or Dimitri, that he wasn't the man he used to be. And maybe deep down he was hoping Dimitri would be the one to come to the perestroika. That if the betrayal had to happen, it would come from the man he once saved, the man he protected, the one he helped become something. And if he had to walk through those doors and take control, maybe it would have felt like less of a slap in the face. Maybe it would have felt like a kind of closure, in moments of bitter pride, where Faustin could see with his own eyes that his weaker half had grown stronger than him, that the boy that he spent most of his life protecting had become the man now in full control. But that's not how this happened. Instead, Faustin was left facing down a stranger with a gun, a man he had spared now sent to kill him. There was no dignity, no final moment of mutual understanding. It was just noise, anger, and a broken man trying to convince himself he was still the sane one. In its own way, that is an entirely different tragedy. That Faustin lost everything, and that he never got the ending he quietly was hoping for.